So tonight's lecture is on SMS sending and receiving messaging. It's fun. This is the fun part of the course. And in order to use the SMS features, I can't use the VirtualBox emulator. I should rephrase that. Yeah, no, I can't use it. I'd have to add a lot more functionality to my VirtualBox in order to do that. Instead, what I've got loaded are two Android emulators, and I'm going to talk back and forth between the Android emulators, and I'm going to talk with the DDMS through the Android emulators as well. And I'm going to show you how to do this, so it's twofold. I'm going to demonstrate SMS messaging, how that works, show you the source code for it. Got two different projects, one that actually uses a XML file interface, main XML, with boxes and stuff for sending and receiving, which is really cool. And then I have another one that just calls the built-in functionality of the phone. So there's many different kinds of ways of approaching it. The lecture is based on the manual way, so it kind of gives you a little insight into that. I'm also going to show you an example that I didn't show you last time on file opening and closing and on file saving. That was kind of like in my list to show you that I haven't shown you yet. So depending upon how we get through the text SMS, I'll save that one for last. Okay, so this is, I believe, lecture number 6, actually, in the slide set, available from bhacker.com, tutorial number 3, sending and receiving. Alright, so, intents can be used for this. And so, intents request for an action to be performed and supported in terms of the interaction among different Android components. We have services on the phone that do the sending and receiving. We have applications that create lightweight, I call them lightweight intents because they're essentially calling these features to perform their particular applications. The lecture is going to show you SMS messaging with intents because this is kind of the first way that it was done without calling the messaging program. It's like creating your own messaging program. And the examples I have are only going to do it one way. The same thing happens to send as it is to receive. So it's pretty much the same concept. So for an activity to convey a request to the present, to present an image to the user, to do anything, we have intents that basically do that. We also have what's called broadcast receivers. So intent object names the broadcast being announced. So we can set services actually on the phone using broadcast receivers to listen for incoming events. An incoming event in this particular case would be a text message that comes through, SMS message, comes through the phone, and instead of the default program picking it up and allowing you to manipulate, you can have your own program do it. So we have a lot of listener kind of programs that run as services. They get loaded on the phone. Text message comes in. This app that you wrote with a broadcast receiver receives the notification, hey, there's a text message that comes through. You can actually turn off the notification if you want as well. App opens up and allows you to kind of manipulate it. We don't actually have a default app set on the emulator, so nothing actually opens up when we click on it. So if you can configure it, it actually does work. So intent filters register activities, services, broadcast receivers, and the capability of performing actions on the set of data that is received. So this is a picture of the app we're going to actually have it built for you. And we will include the source code with the video posting, and I'll put it on bhacker.com so you can actually kind of get it. It might actually be there already. I don't know. I just had it on my computer. But step number 1. So we actually have to turn on the permissions. So we're not actually going to receive. We're just going to send. But if we were going to receive, we'd actually have to turn on receive SMS, and I'll show you that when we look at the source code in a few minutes. But in the manifest, we have to add 2 of the permissions, SMS send and SMS receive, or receive SMS, because you can actually create your app just to receive and not to send, and vice versa. In fact, our app is just going to send, and it's not going to receive at all. So in the main XML file, you add a text display up here. Text display and enter the phone number, labels. It says, enter the phone number, and I'll show you how to do this with the emulators in a few minutes. We don't actually have phone numbers, but we have ports that the emulators are loaded on, and they don't actually have to be 2 of the same emulators. You can mix and match emulators. Enter the phone number of the recipient of the message, yada yada. Here's the phone number. Put the message in here, another text display. and then an edit text for this, and edit text for this, a label, and then the send button, and then add the button here for the send button. This is what our display is going to look like. And in terms of our imports, we're using pending intent. If we were going to receive the message, in fact, the example I'm going to show you is going to be a little bit simpler than this. You don't even have to worry about it because we're not going to receive, we're just going to send. We'll receive manually using and you'll see what happens when you receive after you've sent. So, a little toast is being used in here, buttons is being used in here. Telephony SMS Manager can be loaded as well. To write the SMS class, so you have the input from the user, from the phone number and the text, and then you take the text that's on those boxes, on the edit text boxes, and we're going to use them. So here's what the code looks like in this particular example that does both. Whoops. Hello, let's go back. Oops, I don't think it likes my zoom. That's what I want. Okay, so I don't know, it works this time. Alright, so we have public class SMS extends activity. We have a button, represents the local reference for the button that we're going to put on the GUI. Edit text. Well, we're interested in those two pieces of information. We need the telephone number and we need the message that we're going to send. So the basic structure, and you can cut and paste this, which is slightly different than the example I'm going to show you in a few minutes, but you can cut and paste this and it'll work as well. And you don't need the internet for this either. All you need to use SMS permissions. On create, pretty standard. We're going to use the main layout. It's pretty standard. This is on the uncreate. So we have the local reference for the button. It's a button. Get it from the interface. Get it from the interface. Get it from the interface. This is all coming from the r.java resource file. This stuff I want to hope you know already. If you don't, I would highly recommend catching up because the course is going to be over with already. That stuff you should kind of sort of be familiar already. And so should be the on-click listener as well. On the button, we're going to put an on-click listener, and the on-click listener is going to be from the view. It's going to catch the view, the item in the view, the button that you clicked. And then on the click, we're going to take the phone number that's in the text box to string and add it to the string, and then the message is going to be what's in the lower box. So we're going to get the text, and we're going to call the toString. This is basic Java, actually. It's just converting to string the get text from the text message edit text box. And if the phone number is smaller than 0, if it's empty, or actually if it's larger than 0, if it's not empty, and the message is larger than 0, then send the SMS message, the phone number and the message, and we'll see how that's implemented in a few minutes. I'll send up a toast message. Just sorry, you have to enter in a telephone number. You have to enter in a message that goes with it. And here's the send SMS. So to send the SMS, so you use, in this particular example, we're using the Sms Manager class. And we're going to instantiate this class with the call to get default, which is a static method, which is going to essentially give us the default SMS Messenger service. So the send text method sends the SMS message to the pending intent. The pending intent object is used to identify the target to invoke at a later time. So the code for this particular class, and this is what we're using when we click on the button. So we're sending to send SMS, this method here. We're sending the phone number and the message. We're creating a pending intent. The other intents that we've created so far were just regular old intents. And intents immediately work. Pending intent queues it up. So we can have a pending intent with send this message, send that message, send this message, send that message, and they won't get lost. Because you can't kind of like do everything and switch everything automatically, especially with text. But if you're opening up an application that's opening up another screen, you can do that with a regular old intent. But the pending intent queues it up. Get activity this, new intent, so we're putting an intent inside of a pending intent. The pending intent is from SMS class, and SMS class is right here. SMS class is get the SMS Manager.getDefault, which is just making it, what is our SMS Manager? So the SMS Manager is the service that's on the phone. The manager, just like the location manager, that manage the locate. We don't have to reinvent this functionality. So if we're using a GPS program, map view, we want to get the location. We make a new instance of Location Manager. if we're going to send a text message on the phone, we're going to make a new instance of the SMS Manager that's going to manage the text. So you upgrade the phone, you have a new text messaging service, perhaps, maybe some upgrades in it, maybe a new interface for it. It'll use whatever the manager says it's supposed to use. So same kind of concept as the location manager, if you remember that. And this is just built-in functionality on the phone. So SMS.send text message, the phone number, the message, some parameters for sending. So we have a send text, receive text message, send text message, delete, you know, all of the different, and you look that up to see what can you run on the location manager. It's kind of like get location, set location, you know, all the different things that might be available. So here's an example of this working in terms of, this is a really old API where we've got, oops, hello. I pressed the back key and I'm waiting for the slide to come back. Well, anyway, there's two slides. Oops. There's two slides here. And we can keep track, and remember the Ddms Debugger. So we know that this guy is, and from up here we see, you can't really see it, but it's actually, you can. It says Android emulator. You always see the port 5554 for this example written on the screen actually of the emulator. So this emulator here, 5556, is going to send to 5554. So on the next slide, oops. Hello. Anyway, there's two screens here. You can't, my arrows are not working for some reason. I think the images are too big is what it is. And I have two emulators running as well in the background here. I keep forgetting. Long story short, one emulator is sending to the other emulator. I'm going to show this to you live in a few minutes. So, hold on a second. Computer is switching slides on its own now. It's going to get up. It's going to make it to the, here we go. So receiving, that was to send a message. We called the method on the SMS Manager and we said, send this text message. So it sent it. To receive it, we would make a separate class object actually, and in this particular example, this is SMS Receiver instead of SMS Sender, if you were following along this design pattern. And in the manifest itself, we add the receiver element so that the incoming SMS message can be intercepted by the SMS Receiver class. And actually, I don't know if it's coming from telephony, but it probably is, and we'll see it live. This may have changed in its wording, actually, but we'll see the manifest permissions that are added. And we just say uses, type in SMS, or look for SMS, and you'll see all of the different options. So here we have broadcast receiver. Okay, to send a message, we need an intent, and we need to put it inside of a pending intent, in theory. Otherwise, the intents are going to get lost. Send intent, send intent. You can only manage one at a time. So we queue it up. To receive it, we don't need an intent anymore. Instead, now we need a broadcast receiver because we need to put into place a class that's going to sit out there and listen for broadcast messages that come in because we're going to try and receive the text. So in terms of this, we're creating, we're still using an intent because we need to switch to the receiver. And we're still using SMS message, and we're still using a toast. But now we have a broadcast receiver that's coming in. So we're going to extend broadcast receiver class. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. Here we go. Oh, this worked. That's good. So now our class SMS receiver is extending broadcast receiver, because we're building and we're going to, basically we're going to extend the inherit broadcast receiver, use the implementation of those methods to receive. So in the class, extend the broadcast receiver and override the onReceive method. And instead, because onReceive method of the broadcast is just going to hold the message. So you override it to say, oh, hold the message, and then open up my program and populate that message inside of my received a message label, essentially. And then the message is attached to the intent here. So onReceive is part of broadcast receiver. We're overriding that method to say that, you know, get the message passed in, put it in a bundle. A bundle is nothing more than a package, or what do you call it? It's a bundle. A grouping. an object that stores other objects, and so in this particular case, the intents.getExtras, which is going to get the message, the sender of the message, the time it arrived, all of the information about the particular object that we're holding on to. And then SMS message, we're going to create an array of these messages, have it equal to null, set the string to, initialize the string essentially. And then if the bundle isn't null, if it's not empty, then take this received message and load it up into the array essentially. And so our array is going to be the SMS message, and it's going to be the item here. This is the object that we're taking in, and bundle get the particulars in terms of the extras from the particular object that we're receiving, and populate the array with these particular message objects. And then, if while I is less than the number of messages that we have in this particular array. So we're doing kind of a similar concept, but instead of using a pending intent on the way out, we're creating a bundle and an array of messages on the way in. So new one comes in, gets added to the end of the array. New one comes in, new one comes in. So we're queuing them up again, but we're doing it from the opposite direction. And so while we have messages, process them and create a string out of it. And I believe this is going to toast the message up. Hey, new message received from so and so. It does not remove it from the message notification. It just is a receiver of the broadcast that's coming in terms of that's displaying in the notification window. Notification window is a totally different object. We can take the notification window and remove the message if we wanted to. But we're actually receiving it from the SMS Manager. So when the message is received in, it has nothing to do with the notification. We see it up there because the notification in fact, if you turn off the notifications, you're not going to see it up there, which is really cool. And then you'll see the toast message pop up. So messages are stored in an object array PDU format. It's just the format. In fact, we named the object PDU over here. It's carrying all of the extra information. So to extract each message itself, use a static create from PDU, and the message is displayed using the toast class, toast method. Actually, excuse me, it's a make text from a toast. You guys are familiar with toast, I hope, at this point. It's the way you get those little pop-up little messages that appear on the screen. So in this particular case, here's the toast. I'm receiving a message, so we sent one message to the other phone and we received it in, essentially. My broadcast receivers don't work too well. So I put together the send, so we'll see this part, but we'll receive through here, and then you'll see what happens when you click on the message as well. So it's kind of an interesting example. You can cut and paste and put this code in. However, depending upon what version of the API you're using, you might get some interesting results from it. Further references, some of these actually have gone away, however, especially some of the older ones, but most of this stuff is still here. This one from 2008, I believe, is gone, but the 2010 references are still here. So if you're looking for additional resources of information and programming examples, the other thing that you can do is also just Google SMS on Android, and you'll see a bunch of examples for that. Anyway, that was lecture number 6. And so, cross my fingers here, and let me show you the code first. I've got 2 actual files here. One is SMS Demo, and the other one is SMS Examples. I'm going to run the demo first, because the demo is kind of interesting. And send SMS activity. So it uses the built-in SMS intent to send out the SMS message. So I don't have to build a GUI for this. It just uses the built-in functionality on the phone. Still doesn't receive, well, we can still send to another emulator from this MO. We can still send, and we basically, both of these 2 examples aren't doing any receiving, they're both doing sending. Alright, so let's take a look here. Everything is this. The XML file is your hello world XML, essentially. That's about as hello, let me put it on the graphical. except for it has a button on there, because we need to call the intent somehow, so we're using a button activity. So if we take a look at the code here for this, it's simply creating and putting a button on the linear layout of the hello world activity, essentially, if you're creating that. This one's called button send, which is why I'm kind of starting with this one first. We didn't actually have to put a button on there to do it. We could have just put like a link of some sort, or we could have made the intent, put a message up and then 5 minutes later call the activity. Because what we're doing is just calling a built-in functionality on the phone. So most of this code is for the button, actually. You'll see here what we have is the button activity. We have an intent also in here because we use an intent for it. So here we have SMS activity extends activity. Pretty basic. Here's our button reference. On the crate we're using main, so setting, and this is all stuff you should be familiar with already. The local button reference is identified by the button send, the button I just looked at a few minutes ago. We put the on-click listener over here on top of the set on-click listener, new on-click listener on the button. So if you haven't figured out how to use buttons yet, here's your opportunity. This is the simplest example out there. And on the click, here's our main program. This is all the functionality you have to worry about. Get rid of this here. Intent, send intent, which is the name of our intent. We're not using a pending intent. So we could essentially, well, we're not going to block anything because this is going to open up. And what we're doing is we're opening up the SMS application, the default, I was going to say Droid, but the default application that's set on the OS that comes with the phone. And it comes with the emulator actually as well. So there's no way we're possibly sending out too many messages. So a regular old intent works just fine. And the new intent is going to be an action view. So the action view is going to be bring up SMS. So in terms of the intent, we're going to put SMS body, which is going to be nothing. It's going to be set to default content. So the body of the message just says nothing. And then set intent, the set type is going to be, here it is here. This is the service SMS, which is essentially from Android directly from the built-in applications. This works on any phone actually. And when you start looking at the type for the intent, so then you start learning, oh, what about the phone dialer? What about the this? What about the that? And then you'll see there's also a couple of different shortcuts for calling these intents. Actually, I could have called this whole thing in one line. I didn't have to actually break it out this way. And I didn't really need to send it any information either because, it would just come up blank. But this just basically tells you, it's a regular ordinary intent. After you send the message, or no, if you get a problem with the message, the try catch is going to give some exception handling for you, and it's going to say SMS failed, please try again. Don't do very much. And print the stack out. So what I did, and let me show you what I did actually. I ran this application. If I'm lucky, and I'm happy with the application, and I have to use the built-in emulators, which I don't really like to begin with. And I don't want to have to keep worrying about loading it up again and again. And I haven't really made any changes to it. Every time I run a program on the built-in emulators, and this is actually the same for VirtualBox as well, it installs itself automatically from Eclipse onto the emulator. Which means I don't actually have to go through, okay, right mouse click, run application, okay, load up the emulator. Okay, wait, oh, failure. Try it all over again. Half hour later, your application loads. So what I've done is before actually the class started, I went into the Windows directory from Eclipse. I went into the AVD Manager. And you're going to need to do this for SMS messaging, by the way. You need 2 emulators. So I actually have 2 emulators in my list here. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you know how to run these examples. I have AVD4 and AVD4-2. I'm still building a project that is of API level 10 or 8. It's a lower API level, only because I like being backward compatible. But these are 4.0 emulators that I'm loading up here because the 4.0 actually works better for some certain things. So the two emulators that I created are pretty much identical except for they have different names. You don't have to have two that are identical. You can have one from 14 API level and one from 10 and one from 8. Anything above 2.0 works just fine. So make sure you have two emulators. If you want to, what I did was I clicked on Start and I started both emulators. And when I started both emulators, I got them right here. And I have one that's on 5556 automatically and one that's on 5554 automatically. If you start an emulator, it fails and you start it again and it uses the same port. You want two emulators, one on each port. It doesn't matter which port, any port you want. In this particular case, I have already run the application one time on both of these two emulators. So what I did is I just went into the location for which it had installed it in my applications. If you click on the applications here, and I just, whoops, oh, I shouldn't have clicked. Your phone does not have, yes, I know. Let's go back. Let's go home for a second. There we go. Oh, example 2. Oh, that's right. Example 2 actually uses SD card, and there's no SD card on this emulator. But what I just did is kind of crude, but if you hold down on the icon, I can't do it again because my emulator is not going to, I'm chancing it already, doing this much functionality on it. But if you don't, you guys know it's just like a regular old phone. If you hold down on the icon with the mouse, it'll bring it to the front. So if you do that, and if you want to get rid of it, hold it, remove it. So for this particular example, what I've done is I've run it one time, ran it successfully. You actually have to run it on both emulators if you want to do this. Easiest way of doing it is to run it one time on the emulator, save it, or you don't even have to save it, it saves automatically. Close the emulator, load up another emulator. Make sure you have both emulators. So these are two separate emulators that follow my ABD list. Although they look similar, actually they don't. This one has SMS Demo first and SMS Example second. This one has SMS Example first and I switched the order on these actually. But make sure it's installed on both, otherwise what ends up happening is you have to run it and then you run it again and it runs it in the same emulator. So then you have to leave that one running, load up another emulator anyway, and then run the configuration and then pick, automatically, manually which emulator you want to run it in. A little bit more work. So anyway, and now I don't have to worry about wasting the time to actually run the project. So SMS Demo, if I click on the SMS Demo here, this is the program that is out here that I just showed you a few minutes ago. If I click on the Send button, it opens up the intent. It gives me a new instance, or gives me access, here it is, to the default SMS text messaging program. And you see down here at the bottom it says default content. This is the message that I passed to it right here, default content. Let me get rid of this screen here. This is SMS application that's on this virtual device. Don't worry about the directory. Actually, this will work universally on any emulator. It's just the default service. That default content is what's showing up down here on the bottom. Oops. Default content. That's where that's coming from. I sent it to it. So what you could do, essentially, if you wanted to, send it all the information and use it completely, which is what the next example is going to do. So the next example is going to take in the name, it's going to take in the message, and you're going to press send, and the program is just going to stay there. It's going to look like it's actually doing all of the work, when in fact, I'm sorry? Are you the recruiter, dude? No? Well, I'm still waiting for someone to show up. Okay, I guess not. Hey! Oh. Yeah. Is that the guy I was looking for? Yeah. Does he want to do it? I think so. We're ready. Okay, holler. Let me know. All right. And then he can talk to this group. All right. Okay. All right, thank you. All right. We'll still get out on time, don't worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I know I have this other one up here, and I don't have anything running on it, but I know the number of this particular phone is 5556. So I'm going to type in 5556 up here, and this is how you're going to run the example. And down here on the bottom, I'm going to say, hello from 5554. Whoops. My computer has 2 emulators plus recording software on it, so hello. It's a little bit slow. From 5554. There we go. So when I send it, I should get a notification, which I've already seen up here. So this little smiley up here. And if you're not familiar with Android, you click on the notification and you pull it down. And you see it says, no, are you here? No, wrong message. Here it is, here it is. Hello from 5554. Are you here? My emulator is receiving messages. I don't know what's happening with it. I gotta carry my computer now with me to catch all my emulator messages. Alright, that was a joke. Okay. If I load this particular notification, I see hello from 5554, which is the same message I just put here. I could send a message back to 5554 by responding to. You guys have all done text messaging before. Hopefully you've got the imagine the possibilities here. This program, however, was initiated when I clicked on the notification and pulled it down. Okay, give me like 2 seconds. No, I mean, just stay there. So, I just want to finish my thought, then I'm going to pause the video. So, if you write a program that does a broadcast receiver, you don't have to do that. If you copy and paste the broadcast receivers, receive SMS, which is the other complementary class to this one that sends it, it'll do the same thing. Instead, it'll take it, instead of putting it into this program, what it does is it takes the same message, instead of saying, default content or whatever, it puts it in a toast message, or puts it in something else. So you're writing what looks like a very sophisticated application with a couple lines of code using the functionality on the phone to accomplish it. Yeah, I have more, but I'm going to pause this video. Okay, I'm back, and let's finish this up so we can all go home. It's already 8 o'clock. All right, so what you just saw a few minutes ago was the one emulator talking to another emulator. It goes back and forth. I can sit here and I can actually click on this message here, and I can reply back, and this will go back to the other emulator that sent it. And what I'm utilizing, though, is the SMS service of the phone. So, and basically that's the same. You're not going to reinvent the technology, you're going to use the service. So that is one example. And over here back at the ranch, I actually got the reply back over here. So it's up here in my here it is, reply back. Alright, so let me take a look and show you another example. I'm going to leave those 2 emulators up and running, and the other one looks different, acts different, but it's usually, it's pretty much doing the same thing. It's just more customization and more interface that looks like it was done by the application and still running the same service. So I'm going to close this one here to conserve a little bit of memory. And the next example is called Sms Example. And in this particular example, let's take a look at the code first. We've got an Android layout, and the Android layout now has got more boxes on it. So, phone number, message, pretty much is what's on the box. And if I take a quick look, and I just load it on one of these phones here, let me load it on this first emulator. You can see what the final result looks like, and this is the one that's called SMS Example. And I'll include a link to this file for both of these two. Doesn't that look like a full-featured program that does SMS? In fact, this SMS program will communicate with any SMS program. It doesn't have to communicate back and forth. So in this particular case, and I'll go through the code in a few minutes, this is emulator 5556, so I'm going to do the same thing and send a 5554, and I'm going to say from the other example. Now I have the look and the feel and the interface of my program, per se. If I press send, it says message sent. If I go and if I wanted to, I could put a broadcast receiver in the back and then go ahead and receive messages and have messages come back in. So this is essentially what I used to call a wrapper, but it really isn't a wrapper. You're building essential functionality in an app that works with the interface of the service that's already on the phone. So if I go over here and I look at emulator number 2, I've got, lo and behold, the message coming through that says, with my misspellings and everything, it didn't send it actually. Probably was asleep. Maybe it did send it, reply back. I probably sent 555. Oh, I did send it. It'd probably take a few minutes for it to come through. I can also pull up the DDMS and send messages the same way. However, I'm not going to really, it's the same thing I showed you last time. I'm not going to really see anything because I don't have any receivers, I just have senders. So the app, and you can imagine it does the same functionality back and forth, just has more GUI components to it. Instead, it's not bringing up the entire SMS program like the previous example in the demo. Instead, it's acting, look at this, I'm going to add it to the dictionary. It's passing the information through the intent much more than just the text of the message, and it's actually running the send feature. So let's take a look at the code real quick and see how that compares. So SMS activity, and this is the example that brings up the boxes. Now I have a button, I have a text, edit text for the phone number, and I have an edit text for the message itself. In the onCreate, I'm imploding, I should say, the main XML interface. The main XML interface, if we look at it here, we've already seen it running, so you can kind of imagine what it's going to possibly look like. It should look like, if it loads up any minute now, here it is. Looks like the interface we just saw a few minutes ago. And the text for it is nothing more than a bunch of these GUI components here all in a layout. It's in the linear layout. We've got a text view phone number. We've got a text view for the SMS message. Excuse me, a text view and then an edit view. One to say enter your phone number, the other one to get the phone number. And the same components as we've seen so far in a lot of other different examples. So there's nothing really too inventive in that one per se. So let's take a look at the source code and we'll see the resemblance between the automatic functionality and then passing more information with the intent, essentially. But this uses a slightly different kind of format to it. So in the beginning, we are going to override, we're going to create the button listener. So we have the set on click listener that's on the send button. And the new button is going to essentially have some behavior that's going to be overridden. And the behavior is going to be the on-click event, same kind of activity that we've seen before. And in the on-click event, we have a string for the phone number, and the string for the phone number is coming from the text string that's coming from the get text from the GUI element that we put on the canvas. And then we have the string SMS, which is coming also from the text screen. And then we're going to do a try. This is the main functionality of the program, and the important thing here is to take a look to see, well, what difference is there here than there wasn't on the other? Well, here we're sending the text message to the SMS Manager, same as before, but we're just sending more information. So we've got the phone number, and we've got the more fields filled in. I'm going to move that thing out of the way. Where we've got the phone number plus also the message. SMS is the message itself that we're sending. And once we send both of these two items, it doesn't really matter. We don't have to send anything else. We could send, weight. There's different parameters that we can send also in terms of the SMS Manager. Very similar to the call we made to the Location Manager to say, change the location. Here's the longitude and here's the latitude. So now we say, send this text message by send the text message, and here's the telephone number and here's the message, instead of just sending the message without the telephone number. So the slight difference in the method call gives us the functionality that we need. We're doing nothing more than building what I call a wrapper, which is nothing more than a user interface that's built for the phone that gives us, a fancier look and feel. Obviously, this look and feel is a little bit different. Wrong emulator. Here we go. This look and feel is a little bit different than the default SMS program. So we're pretty much doing the same in terms of the examples. All right. And then what it does is if it fails, it sends up a message that says it failed, actually. And this one didn't fail, actually. I believe there's probably a delay. That one emulator probably has it. And as a side note comment to make, we can send messages to the emulators. We can't send from the emulators to the DDMS. It doesn't receive. It only sends. We can also send telephone calls. So we can have the same concept that's used for SMS messaging can be used for telephone calls as well, because it's pretty much the same concept, but instead of sending and creating an SMS Manager, we're doing a dialer instead, or we're calling a phone, or we're receiving a call, and essentially we can perform the same kind of automation that we're doing with the other manager. So I'll zip those two examples and make them available to you. The other example that I'd like to show you, because I do have a few more minutes, is the download file. That way next time I can talk about more concepts and we can get caught up with the examples. Download file was left over from last Wednesday's lecture, where I showed you there was a web page that downloaded a file, and the file itself was stored on a SD card, and I didn't demo it, but I gave you all the code for it and we kind of walked through it a little bit. And the idea was to show an image, download and put an image in a web view. What I want to show you is the concept with, and there's two examples in here actually. It's one project called download file with two separate running programs in it. And the two programs are using a different technique. Neither one of them are using a web browser, by the way. None of them are doing that. Instead, they're using file I/O features and they're using reading and writing to the SD card. And one thing before I forget to show you is the permissions on the SMS, and then I'll show you the permissions so I don't forget on the downloading files. So if I go back to my SMS example and I look at the manifest, I'm going to see those permissions in there. If I don't have the permissions in there, my file is not going to actually work. So send SMS, let me zoom in on this so you can see what I'm talking about. Both of those two examples that I just showed you a few minutes ago are only doing send. None of them are doing a receive. There's a separate permission for receive, which is kind of weird. So if I go add and I use as permissions, and I come over here to the right and I start looking, and if I search on SMS, if I can find it correctly now, this is going to be under here's the send. We already have that one. I need receive. They should make this a little bit alphabetical or something. I don't know. Receive SMS. This is the complementary one. If you're going to start receiving, you actually have to let your application know that you can receive something. If you don't set the receiving, the application will look like it's supposed to, and it just won't work. The same thing is true for the sending. You'll just, oh, sorry, failure, because it won't make the instance of that SMS Manager. And same thing for maps. It won't make the instance of well, the location manager doesn't does require location. So they should really go through and kind of organize this a little bit more, though, I would say. All right, enough critique on that one. So the file demo for the manifest on this particular project on the file demo. In order to download a file to the emulator, and here's an interesting thing. We need to use the internet because I'm going to use an HTTP protocol to actually, instead of building in a web, putting up a web view and loading a website in terms of the web view. Instead, it's just going to go HTTP : give out a URL that has a file, an image file on it, and then download the file. The emulator does not have an SD card built into it by default. And even the VirtualBox, you have to add the SD card. If you don't add the SD card, you can't download anything. Everything that gets downloaded goes into what's called external memory. So you actually have to give permission, and zoom in a little bit here, for external storage for your app. If you don't put in external storage, you're not going to get any downloaded files. If you don't have an SD card, you're not going to get any downloaded files. Most phones have SD cards. The only problem is when you start working with the emulators, you end up having to figure out, well, how am I going to figure out which one of my emulators has an SD card? And the way I've gotten around it, actually, is to label it that way. So here I've got 2.3-SD card. So when I run this program, I'm going to run it on this one because this one has an SD card. And in the emulator, in order to add on the SD card, I pressed Edit here. It's real simple, actually, if you're using the built-in emulators. You just press on the size here, and 512 is pretty good. It's pretty decent. I wouldn't go too big. The reason why is that each one of these emulators actually takes up disk space, and your SD card is going to take up even more disk space. It actually allocates that amount of space and creates it The bigger it is, the slower the emulator is going to run. In fact, this one here runs like a snail. And what I've done instead, and I'll do this right now actually, is I'll load the same example instead of using, and I'll shut these emulators, unless anyone has any questions about the SMS features. Okay, I'm going to shut these emulators down because I don't need them anymore. I can't use the SMS between emulators using the VirtualBox emulator. It doesn't work for that. But if I load my VirtualBox now, I can use it for SD cards and stuff. And let me show you a little trick with that as well. I have a 4.01 emulator, and my emulator's got, right down here on the bottom, you can see I've got an SD card image loaded. It's 8 gigabytes in size. It's really not taking up that much space. In fact, when it gets unloaded, it takes up that much space. Not to say that I'm running low on memory, but if I ever do run low on memory, that emulator may not run if I don't have 8 gigs available for that SD card to virtualize itself and become a running machine. So if I load the emulator, and this one loads a lot faster, so I'm going to do this example here actually. I can actually see the startup, and I can see the emulator has an SDA that's set up here that's basically a virtual disk that's set up for the SD card. So I could, in this particular emulator, download files and then go look for it in that particular directory. So instead of having to manually figure out which tools to use, however, hold on one second, let me get this off the screen. There we go. This particular file demo program will do it for you. So what is file demo doing? File demo, and in fact I can run this real quick actually, and you can sort of see it work first as soon as this loads. And I can see that my Android emulators didn't do as much garbage collection as it should have done because I'm still running a little bit low on memory. Now, I'll give it a few minutes. This doesn't normally take this long to load. Here it goes. Alright, I'm going to do a slight. This now is not working here. Let's get this out of here. There we go. Let's just do a slight configuration here. Wow, this is running slowly. Okay, here we go. Now there's two examples that I'd like to show you, and I'll go through. The code is again going to be almost identical between the two of them. One has a little bit more GUI elements to it. The other one just downloads a file. And it shows you a progress bar as the file is downloaded. So this first one here, file demo, if I right mouse click on it, run configuration, load it into that emulator that I just loaded here manually. There we go. There it is. I thought I unlocked it. Let's see. Well, you can see both of them running actually. I must have selected the project. This first example here, and this is in a tab, this emulator is set up with, hold on one second, I thought I turned off the, no, I had a mouse pad. My mouse is, my external mouse is slippery. I want to click out of here. Hold on. Alright, this is not helping me. My mouse integration is not working. Well, I guess I'm stuck with explaining this example to you without going to the code right now because I can't switch back to it without killing the emulator. See, this is not good. I can't get my mouse out of here. Great. Just goes to show me I should have rebooted the computer after I shut down those emulators. All right. Hold on one second. My mouse is stuck in the emulator. I turned off the integration, and I still can't get the mouse out. It's because it's not registering my keystrokes. I believe this might be a good stopping point for today. Because I can't figure out how to get my mouse out. But what I was going to show you, and I'll demonstrate this on Wednesday. I think we're all getting kind of tired. It's getting kind of late. So the two examples, download a file from the internet. They save it on the SD card. So what I'm going to show you is the simple code. It's nothing more than setting up a web browser, actually, but we're not going to use a web browser. It's just going to a URL, downloading a file, and then the concept of just, it's a built-in file organization in terms of the SD card, so we can work with the file structure as if it were like a Windows system or a Mac system. We can navigate through, we can look at files and stuff like that. So the example's worthwhile. I will save it though, however, for Wednesday. So I guess we're done for today. I have to reboot my computer. I just don't want to lose my video. But I'm stuck. I'm stuck. Thank you. Sorry about the problem. Yes?
So the final exam is on 25th, right?
No, and the final exam is on the 2nd of July. The final exam review is on Monday the 25th.
Oh, the review is on 25th.
The review is on the 25th.
It's
yes.
on July 2nd.
Yes. Did you get it the other way around? Oh. This is really crappy. Maybe I can exit out of here. I can't do that until I get out of here. I'm stuck in here. Oh, man. I'm trying to save the video, otherwise I might not have a recording. Uh-oh. How do I kill the emulator? Alright, this video is trashed. I can't get out of the emulator. I can't save the video.
Android?
Yeah, no, it's an Android emulator. Unfortunately, my mouse is not, my keyboard's not functioning. Because I had two Android.
Same thing happened to me the other day when I was working.
Seriously. When I load those Android emulators, they mess up my entire system. I should have rebooted. So now what's ended up happening is my mouse integration is stuck because my keyboard hotkeys not working right now.
I just opened the Sms Manager and then I switched the application.
Oh, on Windows. Yeah, how do you do that on a MacBook? Actually, maybe Control Alternate Delete. Wait a minute. No, that's not working either. I don't know. Other than rebooting. Oh, I got it out. I got it out. Whew. Let me shut this video off. Sorry for those people who are listening to this.